and human beings. But I don't know that animals, on the contrary, serve each other, said Mr. Jet Maloney. It is men who do. But what is the use of serving, Prabhupada asked. What you can do, what service you have done, you cannot do anything beyond the laws of nature. Now Indira is in difficulty. What can you do? In one day everything is finished. The law of nature is so strict. You cannot do anything. You are falsely proud that you want to help, but it is not possible. Prakriti kriyamanani. You can only do this service of understanding you are not this body, but you are spirit soul. Your business is this. This is Dharma. Mr. Jatamalani protested that nevertheless there was so much physical suffering around. Prabhupada agreed that it was good to be sympathetic, but one had to actually do something to rectify the suffering. So you must know, first of all, how suffering can be stopped, said Prabhupada. Then you do this, the needful. Otherwise, where is the use if you do not know the method? Do kalyam ashvatam. Ashashvatam. I think you have read the Bhagavad Gita. Mr. Jet Maloney said he could not understand yet exactly how the Bhagavad Gita could be so practical, but he was listening respectfully to Srila Prabhupada and appreciating his staunch conviction. But after a few minutes, he prepared to leave. Anyway, he said, I'll be in touch with you, with your Giriraj. Prabhupada continued preaching and simultaneously asked that prasadam be brought for Mr. Jet Maloney. Sir, said Mr. Jet Maloney, I will take leave of you, and with your blessings, I hope we shall soon be. We are preaching Krishna consciousness without any sectarian motive, said Prabhupada. This is unity on the spiritual platform. Try to understand. Mr. Jet Maloney said he hoped that he would be of some use to Prabhupada's movement. Yes, said Prabhupada, that is required, and that you want to cooperate. Whatever you order at any time, said Mr. Jet Maloney. So inform, said Prabhupada, and bring prasadam. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Is there anyone online? Anyone? Online?
2 persons.
2. So this is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 14, and it's text 26, 25. So I'll just run through the Sanskrit. Kwachik cha sita vitadi, enekadi devika, bhutika miyayanam, dashanam pratinni svarane, kalpo duranta chintaya, Vishana Ashte. Kwachit, sometimes. Cha, also. Sitavata Adi, such as cold and strong wind. Aneka, various. Adi Devika, created by the demigods. Bhotika, Adi Bhotika, created by other living beings. Atmayanam, Adhyatmika, created by the body and mind. Darshanam, of conditions of misery. Patini Varane, in the counteracting. Akalpa, unable. Duranta, very severe. Chintaya, by anxieties. Vishana, morose. Ashte, he remains. Translation. Being unable to protect himself from the threefold miseries of material existence, the conditioned soul becomes very morose and lives a life of lamentation. These threefold miseries are miseries suffered by mental calamity at the hands of the demigods, such as freezing wind and scorching heat, miseries offered by other living entities, and miseries arising from the mind and body themselves. Shishikodataya Maya Pashashiki. So responsively, please. Being unable to protect himself
Being unable to protect himself
from the threefold miseries of material existence,
from the threefold miseries of material existence,
the conditioned soul becomes very morose
the conditioned soul becomes very morose
and lives a life of lamentation.
and lives a life of lamentation.
These threefold miseries
These threefold miseries
are miseries suffered by mental calamity
are miseries suffered by mental calamity
at the hands of the demigods,
at the hands of the demigods,
such as freezing wind and scorching heat,
such as freezing wind and scorching heat,
miseries offered by other living entities,
miseries offered by other living entities,
and miseries arising from the mind and the body themselves.
and miseries arising from the mind and body themselves.
Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yeah.
The so-called happy materialistic life is constantly having to endure the threefold miseries of life, called Adidevika, Adhyatmika, and Adibhotika. Actually, no one can counteract these threefold miseries. All three may assail one at a time, or one misery may be absent and the other present. Thus, the living entity is full of anxiety, fearing misery from one side or the other. The conditioned soul must be disturbed by at least one of these three miseries. There is no escape. Om Ganatimaranda Shagananjala Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasman Shri Guruvay Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhashtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamayam Dadati Swavadantikam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasadi Gaurabhaktarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchikapatrubhischa, Kripasindhubhyevacha, Hridinam Bhavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha. So we're continuing on in the forest of enjoyment, and also in the same vein, the miseries are being highlighted. It's so-called enjoyment, but then it turns out that it's not so much fun after all. So, we're talking now about the threefold miseries, the three different types of miseries, those arising from the mind and body, those from other living entities, and those from the demigods. But really, all the miseries are coming from the mind, because whether it's the demigods or the body or the living entities, it's via the mind that we experience the miseries. That's why Prahlad Maharaj was saying, well, Prahlad Maharaj was so absorbed in spiritual consciousness that he wasn't aware of when he was sleeping and when he was eating. So he was so elevated that he saw the only enemy as the mind. So even as his father was trying to torture him, still he didn't experience any inconvenience because the Lord was fully protecting Prahlad Maharaj. And Krishna says in the Gita, Machitaha Savadagani, all the miseries, all the problems, Savadagani, Machitaha. If you can just become conscious of me, then you'll pass over all the obstacles by my grace. If you don't hear me, Nasroshasi, then Vinanshasi, then you'll be lost. So all the miseries are coming from the mind, and the mind that is our enemy is the mind that makes us forget our relationship with Krishna. And the mind that helps us to remember our relationship with Krishna and absorb us in Krishna consciousness is our friend. So the challenge is, can we make our mind our friend? If our mind becomes our friend, then everyone's our friend. If our mind becomes our enemy, then everyone is our enemy. So everything is via the mind. And that's why we chant the Hare Krishna mantra, to deliver us from the mind. And delivering us from the mind means turning the mind into our friend, because we always have a mind. We can't be mindless, but we can have a mind that's working against us, or we can have a mind that's working for us. So it's nice to see it like that, because sometimes when we have problems, we blame other people or other conditions for the problem. But the only real problem is that we haven't controlled our mind. So let's work on that. If we can, because we could go around saying to people, stop doing that, it annoys me, and stop doing that, and start doing this because that pleases me, and do this, do that, move those mountains over there because they're in the way of the sun, and put a river over here so it's more pleasant. So you can do so many things externally, to try and make yourself happy. Or you could just decide, okay, this mind is causing so much problem, I need to make it my friend. And then when the mind is a friend, then we just see opportunities for service. Oh, this person needs some help in this way. This situation is lacking in this way. What can I do to assist? How can I, as the eternal, completely submissive, compliant, humble servant of Krishna, apply myself in this situation? So sometimes with acting, they say that if you forget your lines, then just be the part. So if you're playing the postman and you lose your lines, you're reading some lines that you've got hidden behind your envelope, and you go to look at your envelope to see what to say, and you realize you've dropped your lines. Then you think, okay, well, let me just be the postman then, and it'll be roughly right. So you go around acting like the postman, and people talk to you, and you say postman things, and behave like a postman would, and so you can pull it off. So in the same way, sometimes we may not know what we should be doing, but if we can remember we're the eternal, insignificant, humble servant of Krishna, then wherever the situation is, we'll always know how to behave and what to say and do. So that is the solution, really. Prabhupada says, so-called happy materialistic person. So-called happy. But he's constantly having to endure the threefold miseries. Now, Prabhupada says at the end, there's no escape. There's no escape from this. You can pretend, but actually there's no escape, whoever you are. One devotee was saying, I'm getting so many people come up to me and saying, I'm so worried about the future. I'm so worried about the future. And he said, well, I can tell you what the future is. And they were saying, oh, really? That's amazing. What's the future? And he said, the future is you're going to go old and you're going to die. That's the future. So that's a fact. We all grow old and we all die of some disease, whatever it is. The body is full of disease and we fight against it, all the different cancer and different problems that are there in the body. We override them and then at some point, one of them just takes over and then we go, and then we leave. So old age, disease, and then death. That's the future for everybody. So no point trying to avoid it or pretend it's not there. Or try and pretend I'm happy. I was talking with a nice volunteer that came along here for a few weeks, Robbie, last night. And he was just noting how people are looking for their home and they're thinking that they can buy a home and make that their permanent residence. And so they have a big house with big, big brick walls to keep death out and keep old age out and keep disease out. And triple pane windows and solar panels and stocks of food in the fridge and machine guns under the bed. And so they can lie there at night and think, I'm completely safe. I've got CCTV. I've got a drone permanently hovering over, watching everything. I've got 15 guard dogs. I know how to do Kung Fu. I've got a massive car. There's a car actually called the Beast that Donald Trump used to drive in, and it has bulletproof windows and it has spare canisters of his blood type in the car in case anything untoward happens. And the Beast weighs a few tons. It's like a tank. And so you could have a beast of a car and think, well, now I'm safe. Well, you can't stop the clock ticking away, and you can't stop the inevitable approach of death. So there it is. Not really so profound. It's everybody knows it. Everybody knows it, but most are trying to pretend that it's not actually a fact. It's like they say everyone sees everyone dying, but nobody thinks they're going to die. That's the big illusion. And so they make all their plans. And then when they die, it's like the last thing they expected, although at the same time they know it's a fact. So there does tend to be, when people are approaching their last few days, they reflect back on their lives and they see how they had the wrong system of prioritizing, and in so many ways they wasted their lives. So better that we use whatever time we have now as fully as we can, engage as fully as we can. It's a nice expression. I was reading this morning Mahatma Prabhu's affirmations, and he's talking about when I chant, and he says the period when we're chanting is the time we give ourselves over to the holy name. So we give over everything, our full consciousness to the holy name. The holy name doesn't want anything else off us. It doesn't want our money, doesn't want our car, doesn't want our food in the fridge, doesn't want, all it wants of us is our consciousness. That's all the holy name wants. All we have to do is give our consciousness to the holy name. If we give our consciousness to the holy name fully, then the holy name fully gives us everything back. It's like Srila Prabhupada said, sunshine. Everybody understands sunshine. If you say to somebody, look, there's shine coming through the window, everyone's like, what are you talking about, shine? You mean the sunshine? So he said in the same way, when we talk about consciousness, it doesn't mean anything unless you say Krishna consciousness. That's the original consciousness. That's what we were designed for. That's what the consciousness, that's when it fully expresses its ultimate potential, is when you are conscious of Krishna. And then you pass over all the obstacles. And it's not easy to do that because it's the material energy is a glaring, glittering, and it's has a distracting influence. So it's here to make us forget Krishna. And we're declaring war on Maya. We're declaring war on the material energy. No, I don't want to forget Krishna. I want to remember Krishna. And then the mind says, really? Well, what about this? Wouldn't you rather think about this? Wouldn't you rather worry about that? Wouldn't you rather try and speculate on what's going to happen here? Wouldn't you rather try and change what happened in the past by going through the sequence of events and doing something different? But where's the use of all that? It's all a waste of time, a waste of energy. Better to just give over our consciousness. Give up and give over. I heard another really nice one as well, actually. This was from Robbie. He said he was speaking to one of his friends, and he was talking about recovering. And his friend was saying, well, we don't want to recover. We want to uncover. So he was talking about being normal. You know, you maybe have some mental distress, and you're thinking, I'd like to recover. But we don't want to recover the consciousness. We want to uncover the consciousness. So people are saying, oh, it'll be so good when we get back to normal. Well, we never were normal in the first place. So we haven't got any normality to get back to. Normality is something we're still going to try and find, because normality is Krishna consciousness. It's the sunshine. It's the natural state. And we have to fight for that. It's a challenge to do that. It doesn't come easy. Krishna is the highest, and he doesn't come easy. But he's fully prepared. If you give yourself over, he's fully prepared to give himself over. Yayatam mam prapajante. As much as you surrender, Krishna will reward. And the real reward is that he gives himself. But for Krishna to give himself, then you have to give yourself. You have to give yourself first. Because in one sense, Krishna's already given himself. He's given you everything. He's given you your existence and everything else that's in it. So he's really done quite a lot. And all we have to do now is acknowledge that. And then Krishna's happy, we're happy. Everything's fine. Any questions or comments?
Just a small comment also.
In the beginning, so these three miseries, they're actually, associated with our mind, as you say. And it's like, that person or material nature is giving us trouble, or that person is giving us trouble. But it's all born out of our mind, and largely, or it's because of our karmic activities or our material desires. That is what is coming through in this form of these miseries. So just a small comment.
Yeah, so it's And when the mind is a friend, and it's amazing, wonder what he was explaining, it's like pulling a weight around, and then suddenly the weight turns into an energy that's pushing you forward. So when the mind is a friend, it becomes such a positive inspiration. And Shiva Ramanuja is explaining the same thing in his book Sankalpa Kaumudi, which is a really beautiful book. And he's talking there about how we can inspire the mind. We can preach to the mind. And when the intelligence is strong and it controls the mind nicely, then the mind is very happy. It's very, very disciplined, and the mind actually feels happy. The more we give into the mind and just do what the mind wants, the more the mind becomes insecure. It's like having a dog and just letting the dog go to the toilet everywhere and jump on the couch and swing on the chandelier and steal sausages out the fridge and push the table over and all kinds of things, and you just let the dog do it. So the dog becomes very unhappy, actually, because it's living in such a chaotic situation. If you train the dog nicely and it sits and the place is clean and it gets its food at this time and everything's regulated, then the dog is very happy and peaceful. So our mind is like that. It won't thank us for letting it go. If you can keep it on a leash all the time, then the mind starts to feel, okay, good, I'm with a good master here. He's strong and he'll protect me. I mean, the mind doesn't really want to stay in the material world. The mind is moaning all the time because of the miseries of the material world. So it's just like a silly child. And you know, how do you reason with a silly child? You know, you have to just coax the child and be kind and understanding and understand. Well, because it's childish, it doesn't really grasp the significance of what's going on here, and it doesn't understand the solution. So let me lovingly keep it engaged and keep gently pulling it along to Krishna. Don't attack the mind and corner the mind, then the mind will react in very extreme ways. I mean, it's a shame we don't teach. Mental health is shot through the roof with the pandemic, and it was pretty high anyway. It was 1 in 4, then it became 1 in 3 with mental health issues. And yet it's not there in the educational system. It's crazy. We're teaching the kids 2 + 2 = 4, ABC. Then we're not teaching the kids how to control their minds. So, you know, they know lots of stuff, but they don't know the most important thing, which is how to control their minds. So it's such an important part of the education, is to teach the children how to conduct themselves in a nice way, to be in the mode of goodness, to be regulated, to have high integrity, to keep promises, and to be well-intentioned, and to be considerate of others. These are the real assets of a good education. Knowing facts and stuff and making loads of money, okay, you know, but that's secondary. If you're making loads of money and you're a horrible person, then what use is that? It's maybe okay for you, but everybody else around you, you're making their lives more difficult. Any questions or comments?
Just maybe a small comment in addition to that. So what makes us kind of the translation says that being unable to protect himself from the before miseries of existence.
Material existence, the conditioned soul becomes very morose and lives a life of lamentation. And it's like a vicious cycle. In this life of moroseness and lamentation, frustration kicks in, and it kicks in so heavy that it makes a conditioned soul, illusion conditioned soul, to again chase after sense gratification, engage more in illicit sinful activities, unaware or not bothered about the consequences for it, or even knowing, okay, it is going to harm me, I will still go and do it adamantly. And then the cycle continues. So because of ignorance, he goes in his carrying on in his sinful life, which gives him puts him more ignorance and again more sin, until and unless there's a divine intervention.
And that's why this section is important. Forest of enjoyment, because because it's helping us to see how insidious and how futile and counterproductive it is to continue on in this vein of pursuing enjoyment. And the reason why he's lamenting, he's becoming morose and full of lamentation, because he's trying to deny the fact that there's threefold miseries. He's trying to turn his back on that and pretend everything's fine. So, of course, there's going to be more. And you would think, well, like sometimes people will say, well, why do you have to be so pessimistic about life? Just enjoy yourself while you can. I mean, it's not that bad. We can go out and throw the frisbee in the park and have some fun. Come on, let's look on the bright side of life. And they don't understand that that's actually what's going to cause their lamentation and their moroseness, because they want to deny reality. Rather, you can be happy about the fact that the material world is a temporary place. It's like I was reading in the third canto just recently, Swayambhuva Manu, the father of Devahuti, the wife of Kadama Muni, who was the father of Lord Kapila Dev. He had all the sense gratification. He lived for 72 times 4 million years. So he had a lot of facility to enjoy, but he never forgot Krishna all the time, all the way through. He understood that at some point this will all finish and I'll move out and go on. So that is the great art. Can you live in the material world comfortably? Because if you're living in the material world and you're being all depressed and sad and morose and lamenting, then you're no better than the person that's trying to stay in the illusion of the material world. So you're fully aware that everything is temporary. You're detached from sense gratification. At the same time, you have nice clothes, nice facility, and nice foodstuffs that you offer to Krishna. And you enjoy, like the servant of the king. He gets all the facilities of the king, but the servant never forgets that he's not the king. If the servant forgets that he's not the king, and one day he sits down in the throne, and then there'll be big problems. Like there's a little mosquito, and he wanted to be important, and he saw the king was getting all the adoration. So he thought, well, let me sit on the king's knee, and I can take it. So the little mosquito sat on the king's knee, and all the people were blowing the trumpets and saying, what a great king. And the mosquito was taking it. And then the mosquito decided to sit down to relax, and his little spike went in the king's knee, and the king went, and that was the end of the mosquito. So if we remember our position and Krishna's position, then we can enjoy the facilities of the king, and we can have a nice life. We can move away from this ultimately and move on to something else as well. So it's not that Krishna is averse. Krishna has been fulfilling everyone's desires since time immemorial. So if you say to Krishna, oh, I want to be important, I want to be a film star, he says, okay, but you'll have to go to the material world. He won't force you. If there's something that you want, then Krishna will facilitate it. You want a big fast red car? Okay, it has a price to pay. You pay the price. First deserve, then desire. You get all these different things. You want to be in control of a universe. You want to be in control of a planet. You want to be in control of a mansion. What is it you want? Okay, so earn it, and then here you go. There's the facility. Then you can get it. Okay, that's what you want. You want to be on the heavenly planets. You don't want to grow old. You want to enjoy 24/7. You want to have material sense gratification without any sinful reaction. Okay, there you go. There's 7 planetary systems. Go and enjoy yourself. You can go up or you can go down. And if you play your cards properly, then you can accrue your punya, and you can go and you can enjoy. So Krishna's laying it all on a plate. Whatever you want, you can have it. I'm bending over backwards for you. You can have anything you like. But at the same time, I'm not happy, and I'd like you back with me. But if that's what you want to do, I won't interfere with your independence. So then Krishna's willing to facilitate. So imagine how much more Krishna must be willing to facilitate if we decide, no, I've had enough now. I'm still attracted to these things, but will you please now help me? Pull me out. Ainanda Tanuj Kinkaram. Somehow or other I've fallen. Please now pick me up and place me as an atom at your lotus feet. So Lord Chaitanya is showing us the mood and how we should pray while we're feeling. Srila Prabhupada, I was just reading recently, Srila Prabhupada says that the secret of chanting is that when you're chanting, you're praying, please keep me in the society of your service. He said that is the secret of chanting. So you're chanting in that mood, please keep me in the society of your service. So if you're in that mood, then whatever it is you're doing, whether you have a family, whether you live in the forest, whether you're in a cave in the Himalayas, whether you're a grihitaki, bonitaki, whether you're a sannyasi or a vanaprastha or a grihastha or a brahmachari, just remember, somehow or other I've fallen, please, 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 please pick me up. That's our prayer when we're chanting, please. I can't do it, you please help me. We can have so many far out techniques for chanting and things that we've read that are inspiring, but we're still completely dependent upon Krishna. If Krishna decides he wants to reciprocate with the way that we're chanting, with the mood that we're chanting in, with our sincerity, then it's up to Krishna if he wants to. So we have to chant in that mood that we're helpless. That's what humility means. It means I'm helpless. I'm helpless. I can't do this unless you help me. And then we approach in that humble, helpless mood, and then Krishna amazingly will pick us up. It's compared to the cherry syrup in the middle of a candy. So sometimes when people are chewing the candy, they spit the candy out after a while because they get fed up with it. They get bored with it. So when you're chanting, the cherry syrup is inside. So sometimes you have to work a little bit at the chanting, and then the nectar starts to come out. And we have to get the cherry syrup, otherwise we may become bored with our chanting and we may stop. In a ratio of how many people are chanting to how many people have bead bags, it's quite small actually. Quite a small percentage of people that are continually chanting compared to the people that have bead bags. They have their bead bags in their cupboards and they're collecting cobwebs and dust, and they kind of know that they should chant and they are going to chant very soon, but they're not chanting. So every time you put your bead bag on your hand to chant, thank Krishna for allowing you to chant today, because ultimately it's up to Krishna. He allows you to chant, and then if you chant sincerely, he'll give you the cherry syrup that's in the middle of the mantra, that living feeling that we've forgotten. It's our original sunshine, our original nature is that love for Krishna. That's Krishna consciousness. It means loving Krishna. They say to know Krishna is to love Krishna. So when you're actually conscious of how lovable Krishna is, that's when you're actually Krishna conscious. Otherwise, you may have some partial awareness of Krishna, but it's not full-on understanding of who Krishna is, how beautiful Krishna is. Any questions or comments?
Small comment to what you mentioned, like on attachment and detachment.
Again, like in in material society, attachment is seen as a good sign, a good thing, but it's just like where that propensity is applied. So like people consider, oh, be attached to family and this and that, and that itself becomes a source of misery to what we are attached actually. And when we detach ourselves and actually attach ourselves to Krishna, then it's a source of real joy.
That he gets angry with his family, and then he feels sad that he's been like that to them, you know. Sometimes due to bodily hunger and thirst, the conditioned soul becomes so disturbed that he loses his patience, and he becomes angry with his own beloved sons, daughters, and wife. Thus, being unkind to them, he suffers all the more. So it's like if you're a heart surgeon and your wife comes in and you've got to do an operation, maybe you've got to do a bypass on you. So with a bypass, that's not a pleasant thing. You have to cut the sternum and open the rib cage up like the rib cage open like a cage, and then you go in and then you do what you have to do with the heart. Now, if you're too attached to your wife, then you're like that with this. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. You're not going to be able to go in there and just do the operation. So, if you really are attached to the welfare of those that depend upon you, then you have to learn to be detached. And that's how you can be the proper husband, the proper guide. And then by being detached, you don't become angry, you don't blame them, and then you don't feel like you're being unkind. You just perform the operation of an ideal gurupati. Gurupati is the name for husband. It means the guru, the one who's going to lead the family out of the material existence. So by being detached and showing the family how to be detached, then they see this wonderful example of their father. And then they feel so much love also. Just like with Srila Prabhupada. He was so detached, and yet at the same time he was able to show so much love, but not in an attached way. So we confuse love with being attached. Oh, I love this person and I'm so attached. I worry about them all the time. But that compromises your ability to protect and look after them. Rather, you love their potential that they could be, fully surrendered and devoted to Krishna. And I'm going to assist them and help them to become disentangled from the material energy. And I'm going to not just love them, I'm going to love everybody, because when you love Krishna, then you love all his parts and parcels. So then the love becomes Mahatma, becomes broad. Pure love is broad, and Duratma, their love is very crippled. I only love this person, and I only love this person if they behave in this way. And it's all very restricted, but real love, pure love, is very, very broad. One's very broad mind, very accommodating. You appreciate everybody for what they are, and you're well-intentioned toward them. So let's unfetter the soul's love, which shines resplendent like the sun for everything, wherever you come in contact with, whether it's there was a little moth the other day, and it got caught in the water, so I made a very elaborate arrangement to try and dry its wings, and so it could flutter away, So Krishna consciousness is teaching that we can have that love for everybody, whether maybe it's not our family, maybe it's not our species, but it's a living entity. It has a right to live as well. I should try and help it, try and protect it. So in that sense, we're detached, because we're not just focused on them, but we're focused on everything. We want to love everything. And that's the best example you can give your family, and it's the best service you can do for your family as well. Show them how to step out of the material world and leave it once and for all. Yeah, so it's very poignant, isn't it? Because of all the different problems, he loses patience, and then he blames those that he's actually attached to, and then he becomes more and more depressed and more negative, and then more and more unable to help those that are depending upon him. I mean, it's interesting, family life, it's interesting. It reminds me of a man in a little boat, and he sees some people flailing around in the ocean. So he sees a nice lady. He says, "Oh, I love you so much. Why don't you come up onto my boat?" So she climbs into the boat, and she says, "Oh, thank you for that." And then he sees a couple of little kids, and he goes, "Why don't you come onto the boat?" And so the kids come onto the boat. So he's sitting there with the lady and the two kids, and then they say to him, "The boat seems to be sinking." And he says, "Oh, you don't worry about that. It's not a problem. It'll sort itself out." Oh, okay. Well, where exactly are we going? Well, that's another one as well. I mean, don't worry about that either. I mean, nobody else in their boat seems to know where anyone's going, so that seems to be the normal thing. So just don't worry about it, okay? So he brings these people onto the boat. He doesn't know where he's going. He doesn't know how to steer the boat, and the boat is sinking. So it would be a lot more intelligent. Get your boat sorted out, learn how to sail, plug up all the holes, and then when you go in the ocean and people climb aboard, whether it's your wife and children, or those that you're teaching, or your friends, or your father, mother, whoever it happens to be, you can offer them all something substantial, not a sinking boat with no rudder and no sail. Oh, it's okay, just hop on. It'll be an interesting ride. But look, there's some rocks coming up. Don't worry about it. We'll be okay. We'll take it as it comes. The important thing is, don't worry. Just look on the bright side. So you can say that when you're in a boat that's steady and you've learned to navigate across the ocean of material existence. Srila Prabhupada said that the man on a long journey is able to tolerate all the difficulties of the journey because he's absorbed in what it's going to be like when he reaches his destination. So he's so absorbed in where he's going to be that he's not even really aware of what's going on. You know, the train's full of people and goats and chickens. He's on an Indian train, and he's in the cheaper section, and it's jam-packed. But he's just thinking, I'll be in Vrindavan in 4 hours. I can't wait. And so he's peaceful. Any other questions or comments? We can maybe end a little bit early because you have to go and serve. And we all have to go and serve, actually. There's no questions. Who's listening?
In total, there are 6 viewers currently. I think right now there are 2 viewers. In some comments, like Haribol, Krishna.
Oh, okay.
And Laura had a comment saying, Mariana, I think she's saying to Mariana on this chat, more on suffering, Adhoksaja Prabhu talks about it much better than I can.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll finish on that cheery note. It's the so-called forest of enjoyment, and everyone goes out to the forest to have a picnic, and they think it's going to be fun, and then they get lost along the way, and then they hear a tiger roaring, and then suddenly the forest isn't fun anymore, you know, and they're thinking, well, how did we get into this mess in the first place? So that's when spiritual life begins. Okay, I want to get out the forest. Some people are in it, trying to make nice arrangements for themselves. Most are. Some are trying to go even deeper into it, thinking that will solve the problem. I can hear the tiger over there, so let me run this way. And they just go more and more into the forest where there's even more danger. So better to find out how to get out. What's the shortest route out? Where's the closest edge to the forest? Okay, so I need to proceed along on that path and get out the forest. And then when you get out the forest, then you can go back in and help other people and say, no, this is the path that I tread. If you go along here, there'll be no problems. Oh, but this path looks nicer. It's easier. It's sloping down. Yeah, if you keep going down there, you'll end up in a ditch. But at least it's nicer along the way. Your path is more difficult. Yeah, it's more difficult, but that's because you're getting out of the material energy. You're not sliding down into it. Jai, Iskon Guru Vrinda ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All of